Hi folks, so some of you may remember a video that's been doing the round for maybe about a year or two now called Data Picard by Pogo. It's a weird and wonderful video with incredible production quality that very accurately recreates the look of TNG to service its strange and really interestingly put together electronic song. It's from an artist called Pogo, real name Nick Bertke. He's Australian, South African born, based in Australia. At Star Trek Eire we have just sort of fallen in love with this video, and we really wanted to get talking to the guy to try and find out more about how he put it together. So we got in touch with him in Australia, and Ronan and I sat down and had a chat with him recently. And we talked all things about his music, and of course, all things TNG. I hope you enjoy. Hi, this is Star Trek Eire, and we're here with Nick Bertke, otherwise known as Pogo. Have I gotten Bertke right? Is that right, man?
It's different every part of the world. Some folks pronounce it Bertke. It's actually pronounced Bertke, I think, is the correct German pronunciation. But yeah, Bertke is fine. Bertke is all good.
So, and Nick, for people like maybe in Ireland who wouldn't be familiar with your music as Pogo, what is it you actually do?
The technical term is Plunderphonics. Think of it as chopping up a movie or a game or even just a person talking and finding those notes and the sounds and putting together a patchwork, putting together a quilt of sound. And the goal for me is to allow you to listen to, you know, Disney or Warner Brothers, your favorite movies, in a musical form. And I started in 2007 with Alice in Wonderland, and it's been going strong ever since. I love it. It's good fun.
That's right. And for any folks watching, you have probably seen that Alice video. It's one of the biggest videos on YouTube. It was massive for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was huge. I don't know why.
I'm just wondering, what inspires you, Nick? What made you come up with
what
that idea?
What inspires me?
I knew that was kicking in at some stage.
Well, I don't know. I think it's probably the movies themselves. I'm actually not really that interested in the music scene, which sounds like a funny thing coming from me. I don't care what's happening on the mainstream charts. I don't care about anything happening in the industry at all. So I suppose what inspires me really is the feeling I get when I manifest my emotions, you might say, when I materialize what I'm feeling in a musical sonic form. I tend to feel everything to the extreme. I'll be depressed today and then I'll be hyper the next day, and that all needs to go somewhere. So I think that's where all my music comes from. Yeah.
That's what I'm just wondering, where you're at. Is this all for the love of it, or do you have your business on the side or whatever? Is this all a pastime?
Well, I'm extremely lucky in that at its core it is very much a passion project, and then it happens to make me money. It happens to pay me bills. I've made so much music that I've now got about 3 albums out on iTunes and Spotify, and that pays my bills. But it's a bit odd because you publish something that you've loved working on for the past few weeks and that you're very proud of, and now you've got thumbs up and you've got thumbs down and you've got likes and dislikes and comments and critique and feedback. Oh, it's not as good as his last one. Oh, it sounds like Alice. And now you've got a different set of motives to make music, don't you? So that's a weird feeling. It's not a nice feeling. And I've actually found over the past couple of years, it's very helpful to limit my intake of social media every week to, I never managed to do it, but you know, it would be in a perfect world nice to only spend a couple of hours on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube every week, because I think you really need to make music for yourself. Art has to come from inside of you, and I think that's the difference with Deadmau5. You know, the guy's an amazing artist, but he's also a hell of an entrepreneur, hence his success. So it's a weird mix of worlds that you have to find.
Yeah, and you're saying about doing it for yourself. You do a lot of commissioned work, don't you?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yep. I've done a lot of work for Disney, Microsoft, Warner Brothers, a whole bunch of studios in the States. Very, very lucky. And that's what allows me to, you know, pay for better speakers, better headphones, microphones, etc. Things that let me do my stuff better. That stuff's great. not many of my clients tell me how to do what I do. You would think that, you'd get bossed around a lot, but actually they just leave me to my devices, which is really, really cool. It has developed into a brand, which the one half of my brain is really into that. The other half of my brain wants nothing to do with it. So it's like, which cap do I put on my head today, so to speak?
Yeah, I totally get that on a much smaller scale, based on what I've done. That as soon as there's a time limit on what I need to do, then the fun goes out of it fairly quickly.
I'm kind
Absolutely.
of the opposite of that. I like a gun to my head. That makes me creative. That's what.
Oh, is that right? Yeah. So you need a deadline.
Yeah, because I'm just a lazy cunt, I really am. Yeah. And in terms of where you are, you're based in Perth at the minute. How is that as an environment, sort of culturally?
It's a beautiful city, beautiful place to live. But if you want to be a somebody, if you want to feel things, do things, try Melbourne, try Sydney. I just can't get back into the States, unfortunately, for reasons you guys maybe want to talk about a bit further down the line. I just toured there for a month. It turns out I had the wrong kind of visa, so I made a bag of cash illegally. And I remember sitting there in the immigration office in front of the policeman before I got sent to jail. And they had to count all my cash because it was all just notes. And it literally filled the officer's desk from front to back, left to right. Embarrassing. And 3 weeks in jail, deported banned for 10 years, and 2021 I can get back, but I don't want to wait till I'm halfway up my 30s to get on with my life. So I've got to get that sorted out, or I've got to move to Melbourne or London. We'll see how we go.
Dublin is a cool place as well.
Dublin? Oh yeah? I hear you've got some really nice pubs.
That's about it, because Roland's a dub, I'm not, hence why I'm late today, because I was coming from my town of Dundalk. But I don't think Dublin's a great place at all, actually. I can't
Oh,
stand
you don't?
it.
Why's that?
Yeah, it's got a forced sort of cosmopolitan vibe about it since an economic boom in the 90s, where they've been trying to play catch up with the rest of the world and put out an image of a certain city. It's very false. It's damn overcrowded because it's a tiny city with way too many people, and everything is
so it feels artificial.
Expensive. Yeah, it's far too expensive as well. Don't go to Dublin. Go to Belfast. Go to Cork.
Don't base your opinion on Kieran, Nick. Come visit, check it out for yourself. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, I'd love to.
So, Nick, around how early in your development did Star Trek start to come in?
Yeah. I actually got into Star Trek through The Next Generation. So I got when I was in my late 20s. I got the first Blu-ray season. I watched it and I became pretty addicted because what I realized pretty quickly is that it's not really stories about aliens and lasers. It's actually stories about people.
Thank you for my life. Flirting. Laughter. Painting family. Female. Human.
I should have done this a long time ago.
You were always welcome.
It's human stories, and that's something that I love.
I hope you don't grow up resenting the fact that I was gone so much. That comes with this uniform.
Not just explosions and gunfires and, rocket ships, etc. So I had to go get the next season, and then I had to get the next season, and I thought, screw it, I'm just going to get the whole series. And I watched the whole Next Gen series back to back, like over the course of two weeks.
Wow.
And I loved it.
That's good.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. And since then, I've watched the whole series again twice.
And you even loved seasons 1 and 2, yeah?
Oh yeah, look, I mean, there's a lot of shockingly bad episodes in Next Generation. Loxana Troy comes in, and you can tell it's just one of those shows where they need to bang out another episode to finish up the season. Let's get Troy's mother in. And she was actually the voice of the Enterprise. She was the computer voice as well.
I grew up with Next Generation. That's if like the episode Tapestry, if you pulled Next Generation out of my life, I'd be a totally different person.
Right. Yeah.
Remember
look, I moved to the Philippines for 6 months, and what I did before, like the night before I had to fly out, which was a bit scary, I put on the episode where Picard gets zapped by something in space and then he ends up unconscious for 20 minutes. But in that 20 minutes, he lives 60 years on a different planet in a different part of the universe. And he wakes up and he's only been out for 20 minutes and he's just shocked. And Picard has to play this character that is progressively aging and aging and aging, and he does such a great job. And it's really thought-provoking, yeah.
The themes of loss and memory and how holding on to the memory of a loved one in that episode, that it honestly chokes me up every time. It's an incredible episode.
Absolutely. Yep. And the one where Data gets it, he's secretly harboring this child for himself who ends up developing emotions unexpectedly, and that's what ends up doing her wrong in the end, and they have to take her away after. I just thought that was amazing.
The Offspring, yeah, another magical episode.
Yes, that's it. Yep, The Offspring, yep, brilliant episode. When I first saw it on cable TV, I thought, what is this shit? And then you watch it, and the characters are just so three-dimensional. I'll never forget the episode where Worf loses the ability to walk, and he asks Riker, like, can you kill me? Because as a Klingon, this is humiliating for me. I can't live like this. I need to be able to fight and do my duties, or otherwise I'm useless. And that's just his culture. So Riker said, well, no, I'm not going to kill you. You're my best friend. But then Picard said, well, if he's your best friend, you should honor his traditions. So I thought, wow, this is like three characters coming to blows with the limits of their personal morals. This is just amazingly good writing for a TV series. Yeah, just such a good show.
So a couple of years ago, maybe about 2 years ago now, I shared on Facebook this video with this much skinnier guy, I must say, doing lip syncing to Picard and Data. And I'll be honest, Nick, my first impression was, what the fuck is this? And I honestly kind of didn't get it. You know, I'm like a massive Trekkie and stuff, and I'm watching, and I was like, well, the visuals are really impressive, but I'm not sure I understand. And then it was like my second viewing then, because it was an earworm. I had this like, Shirka, like sort of drilling into my head. And then I watched it the second time, and then the third time, and the fourth time, and I think it was about the fifth viewing. Now, this is over a period of maybe a couple of weeks.
I think I'm with you as well. Yeah. I think I was shocked when I saw it first. and now it's just so awesome. I don't think there's anything like it.
Well, I won't take responsibility for the brain damage, but I'll definitely take the compliment. Thank you. Well, just before I moved out and got my own place, I made a track called Data and Picard because I was in love with the series. So I was working on this track where I just made this dance piece, and then I decided this needs like Picard's voice and it needs Data's voice, and so I started sampling the whole series, and I made this huge list of like, you know, at 6 minutes 20, here's Picard saying this, and it sounds nice. I can tune that maybe.
When I have plucked the rose, I can.
Here's 12 minutes in, Data's saying this. That sounds good. Here's a sound effect at this point, a sound effect at that point. And I got a whole list of like the whole Next Generation series just with timecode pieces like that. And then I just thought, I want to make a video for this, but so many of the vocals aren't on screen, which is a huge problem. You know, a lot of what Picard says in that Shakespeare piece, I think it is, or Hamlet or whatever, a lot of it is actually him facing away from camera. So from a video editing point of view, that's totally useless. So I thought, well, what if I just played Picard? And what if how could I get myself onto the Enterprise? How could I do that?
When I have plucked the rose, longing still for that which hunger nurses the disease. In faith, I do not love thee. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?
And so there's a couple of really good production houses here in Perth where I live, amazingly. And I decided I'm going to get some green screen, and I'm going to get some lights, and I'm just going to shoot myself in my dining room. And I'm going to just spend weeks compositing myself into these shots.
No one had a chance to interrupt. It was quite hypnotic, incredibly unbroken sentence moving from topic to topic. No one had a chance to interrupt. It was quite hypnotic.
And so that's how it worked. I had to get the original makeup they used for Brent Spiner on Data back in the 80s. I found the Bill Nye makeup they used. I couldn't get the contact lenses in, so I had to do that in post. So it was many hours of me just painting my eyes yellow in every single frame. It was an absolute disaster.
Were the eyes completely digital?
Yeah, and so was the color of his tunic, yeah. Because I only have Picard's tunic. I didn't have Data's, so I had to recolor that too.
Jesus Christ, I would not have known that at all.
That is a labour of
Oh, well,
love.
good. That means I've done my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, that's one of the real things that really hooked me in was when I read the description and you said you'd done it in a room in your house. What? I assumed it was some sort of at least rented studio space or something like that.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
really
I always
does
did,
hold up.
really.
It blends in. It blends in with that, like even Blu-ray era TNG footage. Fantastic. Like you cut to Riker at the end saying, "There's a twist," and it absolutely matches. It looks fantastic.
Oh, great. Thanks. That's really good to hear. My goal was to recreate that film look because obviously, the Next Generation, apart from being lit so wonderfully and shot so wonderfully, it was also shot on film. It has that really nice celluloid look to it. So I had to look at different software algorithms for recreating that. But I looked at all the different shots that I was going to composite myself into, and I had it there on my laptop while I was in front of the green screen so that I could move the lights around and I could shoot a light up at the ceiling with a blue gel on it to simulate skylight, and then I had a 2,000 watt light over my right shoulder to simulate sunlight, and of course I was shooting at night, so even though it was indoors, it still managed to light up the whole neighborhood, and that was great fun.
Back when I was in the academy, we would follow every toast with a song.
Light's really fun. It's just, I tell you, being a one-man crew is that's a shocking amount of work. I just remember getting to the end of the night and I literally couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. So I just had to call it a day, get the makeup off and go to bed. But it was worth it in the end. I think it's one of the, I'm still super proud of how it's come out.
So when you were watching TNG, were you especially paying attention to Brent Spiner's mannerisms? Because there's one little facial tick that you got done really well. The little that he does whenever he's kind of thinking about something.
His little, his thoughtful puppy face is what I like to call it. Yeah.
How many hours would you say you put into that, Nick?
I think it's probably a good month of solid work, morning to evening. Yeah. The filming really only took me about a week in total, but the compositing and the editing was a disaster, absolute disaster.
Is it almost worthwhile making a behind the scenes how you made that video?
Yeah, I could. I've thought about that. I've actually thought about setting it up again in the dining room as like a kind of a set so that I can show people, these are the lights I used. This is how I did this shot and stuff. And then, because, I've still got all the After Effects project files. I could definitely do some screen capture and some narration and stuff. It's actually something that people have asked about a lot is, can we see behind the scenes of the Star Trek vid? It's something I should think about doing this year, in all honesty, yeah. And
in terms of Data's singing, because he's singing a piece of Italian opera, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And that was tricky to work with because he was singing it very far away from the mic. He's like off in a wide shot somewhere walking around the room and it didn't sound very good. So that took a lot of EQing, to get that sounding a bit drier.
In terms of how that's chopped up and put back together, do you think it makes sense in Italian? Do you think the words would still come out in Italian?
I don't know. I hope it's not offending anybody.
You do have a new album coming up, Nick. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, so Weightless went up a year ago, which had Data Picard in it. This year I'm putting out the next album, Ascend, as in Ascension. It's a collection of all the tracks I've made over the past year. I think I've got about 16 main big ones there, of all the stuff that people have been asking for and demanding. There's the Boy and Bear mix in there, which is the Winnie the Pooh track. There's the Robin Hood track in there. There's Carpet Ride, the Aladdin track, and there's a whole bunch of great stuff in there. So, yeah, Spotify and iTunes hopefully should be accepting that in the next few days.
That's great stuff, Nick. Well, Nick, thanks very much for sharing what you like about at least one particular little corner of Star Trek with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love talking about it.
Well, thanks again for your time, Nick. It's been wonderful.
Yep, no worries, guys. Absolutely.
Nick, thanks very
guys.
much. Hopefully we'll get chatting to you soon. Thank you, and we'll let you know how to edit.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. Engage.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.